guys, what it is your girl Cadillac. Yes, I'm Cadillac Dixon. I'm the Draw My Life prison wife. I'm the legally blind artist that is rapping and painting for justice. Hoping, girl, to see justice before all face to black. Yes, it's your girl Cadillac. Anyways, I'm coming through. It is still March the 21st. Yes, it is like 10 o'clock. Girl, I was just trying to record this video and then money called. Y'all know it that conversation got a little too long and I cannot like really just pause the video while I talk. Like, that's why I missed that galaxy so much. But we got to move forward. The pot is finally boiling, like for real. Y'all are really checking out this video series that I am doing. It kind of started with C Murder, aka, why do I say it backwards every time? It started with Corey Miller, aka C Murder, and then I kind of started like comparing a few issues that happened in my husband's case. You know, Corey Miller is maintaining his innocence. And he's also on a hunger strike to try to bring awareness to the inhumane circumstances that are in DOCs. Let's just say all DOCs, because I don't think it's just Louisiana's DOCs, right? So it led to video after video, and I'm going in depth, and I'm like, people are actually watching. So while I got the mic, when someone passed you the mic, he'd be like, no, I'm sorry, I don't know what to say. And then you get on the mic and you be like, yes. And you have a whole speech, girl. So I got a speech prepared. Anyway, so today I went through a long day at work. I just showed y'all all the notes that I took while I was at work in the last video. So let's get into it. So this is a continuation of the part where I was saying the grave mistakes that we make when we take a not wrongful, but a conviction at face value. That means just because the person's incarcerated, you just, oh, well, he shouldn't have did what he did. And that just justifies any treatment of that individual. Not knowing that there's a lot of people incarcerated that did not do what they're accused of doing. Okay, so I first started with this diagram. I don't know if you can see this. I'm going to digitally, y'all know I'm a graphic designer. So I am going to make a chart. Yes, I'm going to make a flow chart. But that top part where it looks like a little scale or whatever. Okay, let me explain that. And I'm going to refine it. But basically, in my husband's case, he was accused, y'all already know, of robbing someone of $60. And if you have watched any of my previous videos, if you haven't, girl, please go to the playlist. Marcello Jackson, wrongfully convicted. I'll tell you this time, but next time, I'm going to assume that y'all already know. But the reason I say $60 is because when the people alleged that Marcello robbed them, they initially wrote in their reports he robbed them of $80. And then when the cops searched Marcello and found that he only had 60 on his person, the cops gave the affidavits back to the guys and told them to amend it and write 60. So you see in the reports where it is scratched out. And one guy wrote a smiley face over scratching it out and initialing it. And they did that so that the money would align. That, oh, you said Marcello took this amount, and oh, here's that amount that you said he took, which it wasn't even the same amount, right? Okay, so for the charges that they charged my husband with, robbery was the main charge. Like without the robbery, they proven the robbery, they could not charge my husband with the other charges. They stacked charges. So that's what that was going to be, but it's going to be much prettier once I design it. But you see how robbery is at the bottom, balancing everything, and then at the top, I'm going to have the other charges. Okay, so off of that flow chart, I have pointing to the robbery Okay, the robbery must be proven in order to press the other charges. Okay, and then as you see, this might be reflecting backwards, so I'm not sure, but I'm gonna be, putting this in a digital format, so I'll be able to show it to you. I'm just gonna read it then right now. Okay, so because there were two individuals, they gave Marcello 2 counts of robbery. Count 1 for the first person, count 2 for the second person. But this is all one act, and they pulled as many charges as they could out of it. Okay, so the first issue says, okay, so it portrays 2 people that were already in the car before Marcello entered. So y'all know the story. Marcello was walking from the convenience store. His cousin rides past, says, "Hey, man, you want to ride?" Marcello's like, "Okay, it's just a block up, but hey, Florida is hot. And if you offer to ride, girl, who turning down a ride? Especially from your cousin." But his cousin already had 2 people in the car. He gets in the car, but he's only dropping him off a block up, right? As soon as he picks Marcello up, which was extremely close to a stop sign, he actually, because it was so close, he ended up rolling the stop sign. Once Marcello got in the car rolled the stop sign, and the cops patrolling the neighborhood constantly seeing the car roll the stop sign. Proceeded to pull the car, and instead of, like usual, you just pulling over, and it's just be what it is, his cousin floors it and ends up going on a high-speed chase throughout the neighborhood, lands the car in a dead-end cul-de-sac, jumps out the car, and runs. Okay. So the second point that I have on here, the robbery was not proven because the money did not line up. So you see how I said that these are in the instructions that are on the for the jury, saying if you charge Marcello with robbery, then you have to prove this, and that. So to be able to charge him with the other charges, which I'm going to go through all the charges, but right now we're just dealing with the charge of the robbery. But the robbery was not proven because the money didn't line up. The judge actually said that you cannot charge him with robbery because the monies are not the same. Okay, so the judge says you can't charge him with robbery. The money did not align. So they dropped that charge of robbery. They were supposed to drop, remember there were 2 because there were 2 individuals. So they put him down for 2 counts of robbery of that $60. Okay, the charge then, because the state went on to say, but he tried to rob him. He tried. The judge said, okay, well, you can go ahead and pick it up as attempted robbery. But if you go to the jury instructions, which are at the end of the trial transcripts, it says that you cannot stack that charge on top of anything but the robbery being proven. So it's not attempted robbery. Attempted robbery is not robbery. It has to actually be robbery. Okay. So to continue to the next one, each charge that they did give Marcello was actually doubled because there were 2 people present, and they were saying that the robbery act was against both people. Okay, the charges of 2 robberies, they could not charge him with 2 robberies. And that is because there was only $60. So you can't charge, that means that $60 basically belongs to one or the other. So he couldn't have robbed allegedly both of them of that $60, right? So it's really only one. So it only should have been one charge of robbery. So this is showing how the cop basically that pulled him over, that basically wrote up the affidavits, gave the affidavits to be amended, they come up with the charges. That's how the case starts with the wrongful convictions. Most times start with wrongful arrests, right? So that cop basically was just saying, well, what can I charge him with out of this? He was getting everything that he could, not knowing that, hey, I really can't charge him with this because of this and this because of this. He didn't know none of that. They stick you with them charges, and it is up to the court to go and check back over. But the problem is most times they just side with them. They don't just go and check and make sure this is right, that's right, and whatever. Okay, so the rest of the case cannot stand on attempted robbery. They only drop, though. Remember when a judge said you cannot charge him with robbery because the money don't align, and then he allowed it to be picked up as attempted robbery? They were supposed to drop both of those counts of robbery. But as I go back and look up Marcello's charges, which actually were the ones that he was convicted of, they never dropped that second robbery. They kept that second robbery because they knew they could not complete the case without dropping, without having that robbery. That robbery element has to be there. So rather than them dropping both robberies and making them attempted robberies, they kept one of them as robbery. So that is actually, he's charged incorrectly there. The judge already said you cannot charge him with robbery because the money don't align. So does that mean that he has to tell them that twice? They're only correcting one of the issues that the judge already said cannot stand, right? Okay. So it says they dropped one and they should have dropped both because the judge said you cannot charge because the money doesn't align. So why didn't they drop the second charge? Okay, so now as we go to the second part. Okay, that was with the robbery. They also charged Marcello with 2 counts of carjacking. Okay, the carjacking came to play. Okay, let's see. Okay, so I got to tell you a little bit about why he's charged with the carjacking, because I don't have that in my notes. Okay, so if you haven't watched any of the other videos, it's going to be a quick synopsis. But if you have, then you kind of already understand what I'm saying. Okay, so I was telling you in the video from earlier today that the arresting officer, actually changed the scene of the alleged crime to align with Marcello being at this nightclub that is on a main street. A very popular nightclub when it was around. Okay, so the cop said that he observed Marcello coming out of the club, and he seen the car pull out the club, and then basically when they got by that stop sign, then seen the car run the stop sign, and the cop car proceeded to pull them over. Okay, so Marcello basically wanted the surveillance from the club to prove he was not at that club. Marcello was a block over at the convenience store. So it's all in the same vicinity, but he was not at the club. But the cop said that he seen him and placed him at that club. That's basically the eyewitness, the cop. I seen him come out that club. Well, that would be believable, like it's coming from a cop. Why would a cop lie? And okay, he's saying he's seen him, so he had to have been there. But the only problem is, from where the cop said he observed Marcello come out that club, number one, it's dark because it was nighttime. Number two, it's too far away because it's at least probably 100 feet. It's too far away. It's 2 stop signs away. So I don't know how he seen Marcello come out that club 2 stop signs away. And the third reason he could not have seen Marcello come out that club is because the road does not run straight. So from one stop sign to the other does not go straight. The stop sign where the cop said he was, you have to quickly swerve over and then continue straight. And then the road curves a little bit. It's not a straight shot. So there's no possible way to see from where the cop said he was at to the entrance of the club where the car would have been pulling out. You cannot see that. You cannot see that entrance until you're darn near on the main street where the club is. I actually went and recorded the route, and in the next video, hopefully, well, I'm going to do a live tonight where I'm drawing, and we're going to be reviewing the earlier parts of this series. But probably my next actual video, when I get some time, I'm going to be showing you that video recording of me driving that street and showing you there's no way what he said was true, because you can't see nothing but trees in front of you. Like, girl, how did he see through them trees, girl? But okay, so let's jump to the next part. So now that I gave you that, they basically said that Marcello walked up to the 2 patrons that were sitting in their car in the parking lot. And he walked up to their car, and the whole full story is that he asked them, "Did you have a cigarette?" And Marcello, as the driver, said, "No, I don't have a cigarette. All I have is," he said, "I got ready to say, all I have is Slims. And when I lifted my head, I felt cold steel against my nose." So that's basically where the weapon that they're charging Marcello, that they never recovered, never found, but they're charging him with that weapon because the guy said he felt cold steel against his nose. Okay, so basically he said that Marcello came up on his side, asked for that cigarette. He didn't have that cigarette. It quickly turned into, this is a robbery, basically. Marcello, they claim, tried to get in the front seat, in the driver's seat, and his cousin is the driver that was driving the vehicle that picked him up, that went on a high-speed chase, that floored it, stopped the car in a dead end, jumped out and ran. Okay, so the cousin, they said, came in and got on the passenger side of the vehicle. So this is all taking place in the parking lot of that club. The patrons are sitting there. Marcello approaches, said, "Hey, guy, you got a cigarette?" The cousin approaches the passenger side, and quickly it turns into, this is a robbery. Okay, so they said that Marcello forced them to get in the back seat. Marcello jumps in the driver's seat. He kind of fidgets because he was trying to drive off. His cousin jumps in the passenger seat after they get in the back, and he tries to drive the car off. But Marcello quickly realizes it's a stick shift and he cannot drive stick. So they say that Marcello demanded his cousin come over to the driver's seat, and Marcello jumped into the passenger seat. And that's how they're explaining that Marcello ends up in this passenger seat, even though they got him pretty much as the head of this crime, right? That justifies that cousin being the driver, because they had to protect that cousin, because that cousin later gives them confidential information, which basically gives him almost immunity from this situation, right? So they have to protect that driver. So in order to make Marcello, because number one, you're going to say Marcello is not driving. So how is he the one that is basically the head of this crime? So this is how they made him the head of the crime. They said that he attempted to take off in the car with the guys, but he realized he couldn't drive the stick shift, so he switched sides and made his cousin drive, right? Okay, that's what they were saying. Now, what's crazy, all of that could have been seen from the surveillance cameras. If that truly indeed happened, and that is truly what happened, why didn't they release the surveillance tapes? If that happened in that parking lot, like they said it happened, that would have been on video recording. But when Marcello and I asked for the surveillance tapes to be released, because Marcello's like, I was not at that club. I wasn't nowhere near that freaking club. I was at the 7-Eleven the next street over. And I literally just left the 7-Eleven. Just left the 7-Eleven, walked down the street. My cousin comes, picks me up. As soon as I get in the car, the cops behind me. And they were like, no, you were at this club the block over, just the block over, and you were in that parking lot. Well, if that is the case, the parking lot surveillance needs to be pulled anyway. And it would have proved, it would have showed whatever happened that night. It would have showed if Marcello indeed approached that car. It would have showed him and his cousin switch sides. It would have showed Marcello making his cousin drive. It would have showed all of that. Or it would have showed that Marcello's face was never seen at that club. Marcello never was at that club. They told us the club doesn't have surveillance. I'm sorry. That's not going to, yeah, that truly would work in his favor. But unfortunately, there's no surveillance at this club. Girl, there's no way there wasn't no surveillance at that club. That was a popular A club and a hotel attached to it. People came from everywhere. This was a historic club. And they had problems with the patrons being attacked in the parking lot. So you mean to tell me there was no surveillance? And also, I found that to be a lie because, let's see, that was 5 years later in the same parking lot. There was a guy that attempted to rob somebody else in the parking lot, right? And you know how they say they found their suspect? Through the surveillance cameras in the parking lot. They claim there were no cameras. They also claim there, which I get into this later, who is knocking? Y'all, please don't do this now because I cannot pause this video. Y'all, I am recording. Y'all, let me handle this real quick and I'll be right back. I hate to end this video because they being rude. Okay. All right, guys, it's your girl Cadillac.